As Israel enters the final stage of its military operation in Gaza, dubbed Gideon's Chariots 2, fears are mounting over the rising civilian death toll and the deepening humanitarian crisis. The campaign has mobilized tens of thousands of troops to dismantle Hamas's remaining infrastructure in Gaza City and surrounding areas. According to Gaza's health ministry, the death toll has surpassed 64,656, a staggering figure that has echoed globally. Yet a difficult question lingers: how reliable are these numbers? In the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, many supporters of Israel argue that Gaza's casualty figures are not just exaggerated, but part of a calculated propaganda campaign to manipulate global opinion. Central to this claim is the idea that Hamas, which controls the Gaza Health Ministry, uses its monopoly on information to craft a narrative that maximizes emotional impact and international outrage. Israeli officials and analysts estimate only about 17% of deaths, around 8,900 named fighters, were combatants as of May 2025, implying an 83% civilian rate, far higher than in recent conflicts like Syria, 29%, or Ukraine, 10%, but critics counter that Hamas obscures its losses to inflate civilian tallies. One striking element of this alleged manipulation is the statistical irregularity in reported deaths. Analysts have noted that the ministry's daily death tolls show yearly consistent increases, averaging around 270 deaths per day, with just 15% variation from late October to mid-November 2023, far less fluctuation than expected in a chaotic war zone where strikes, hospital access, and communications vary wildly. Such uniformity defies logic, as casualty numbers should fluctuate based on the intensity and location of fighting, access to medical facilities, and communication breakdowns. The consistency suggests figures may be pre-scripted rather than based on real-time data collection. Moreover, the ministry quietly removed around 3,000 entries, including over 1,000 children, from its lists in March and April 2025 without explanation, raising questions about initial fabrications via unverified online forms. Another tactic critics highlight is the misclassification of combatants as civilians. Hamas is accused of inflating the civilian death toll by including its own fighters, estimated at over 17,000 by the IDF, and attributing deaths from unrelated causes like illness or accidents to Israeli military actions. This blurring of lines between legitimate military targets and innocent victims portrays Israel as indiscriminately targeting civilians. Repeated errors, such as men listed as women or adults recorded as children, artificially boost the women and children percentage from a more realistic 51% to claimed 70%. Natural deaths, around 5,000 annually pre-war, may also be included, such as cancer patients listed as war victims without separate accounting. The most emotionally charged aspect of this alleged propaganda is the focus on children. Footage of injured or deceased children is repeatedly circulated, often without context, such as a 2014 photo of a boy in Shijaya reused in 2023 claims, or Syrian civil war clips mislabeled as Gaza strikes. These images evoke visceral reactions, galvanizing protests, fueling outrage, and delegitimizing Israel's operations. The portrayal is rarely balanced, with little mention of Hamas's documented use of civilian infrastructure, schools, hospitals, and residential buildings for military purposes, including summer camps training children in combat and reports of child soldiers transporting explosives. By focusing solely on the suffering of children, who make up about 40% of verified deaths, the narrative becomes emotionally overwhelming and morally one-sided, leaving little room for nuance or factual scrutiny. Media manipulation amplifies this narrative. In some cases, individuals reported as dead were later found alive, raising concerns about fabricated stories and staged scenes, including duplicated family entries and unverifiable child deaths. Unverified footage from Gaza spreads rapidly across social media, creating an echo chamber where emotional imagery often trumps investigative scrutiny, exacerbated by pro-Hamas accounts recycling old videos from Syria or even video games like Arma 3. This cycle fuels anti-Israel sentiment and, in some cases, anti-Semitic rhetoric, turning the conflict into a broader ideological battleground, as seen in recent online discussions labeling ministry stats as propaganda amid revised figures. Supporters of this view argue that Hamas's manipulation of casualty figures is a deliberate strategy to win the war of perception. By weaponizing grief and emotion, especially through imagery of children, Hamas seeks to isolate Israel diplomatically and rally global opposition. This perspective does not deny civilian suffering in war, but questions how that suffering is portrayed and whether the narrative serves truth or political ends, particularly as IDF estimates suggest targeted operations have limited broader civilian harm compared to Hamas's claims.